Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the pastor's husband. Yeah! Alright, so yesterday we left off with Zophar, which was the third friend of Job, and he had gone through 29 verses of ranting against Job. And during this 29 verses, he talks about the wicked and how the wicked, they are punished. Sometimes they're successful, but all of their success gets taken away by God because they do something wrong. And then their children are cursed from then on, and wickedness is going to cause terrible unsuccessfulness in this world, and also is going to cause unsuccessfulness for your children. And Job asserted that his friends' statements about the short-lived success of the wicked were wrong, because Job says that the wicked often live long. They often live very prosperous lives in positions of power, and they even die in those positions of power. They die, and a lot of times their children as well end up leading successful lives and are very prosperous. But the thing about it is that prosperity is all worldly. It's all here on this earth. It's not spiritual prosperity. It's all worldly wealth prosperity. So as Job viewed it, the wicked succeeded even while rejecting the Almighty. They neither serve him nor recognize his lordship. So that basically says that is in direct opposition to what Zophar said. Job's rhetorical questions in verse 17 here start out. He says, "How often is the lamp of the wicked put out? Does disaster come on them? Does he apportion destruction in his anger?" Job's rhetorical question implies that despite the wicked person's acts, evil and flagrant defiance of God, and despite all that, it doesn't appear that the Lord disciplines them sometimes. Thus, Bildad's statement did not hold up to him. The lamp that is talked about here is metaphorical, and it is a symbol of a happy life. And an extinguished lamp refers to an untimely death, often because of the judgment of God. So, when I looked at this biblically, I found, I had questions about Zophar's view. I completely thought that his view was way wrong. But then when I got to thinking about Job's view, I was like, yeah, it's not 100% accurate either. Because sometimes God does intervene. Sometimes God does punish us here on this earth. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he does. But he always has the last say. His judgment is always withheld for him in the end. That eternal judgment is always God's at the end. So they both kind of had a little so-so iffy stuff there, in my opinion. We get to chapter 22 here, and this begins round 3, fight between Job and his 3 friends. And this is Eliphaz speaking. So we get to verse 6, and Eliphaz basically charged Job with social crimes. Can you believe that? He said that Job had taken as collateral the outer garments or cloaks of those who were in debt to him. These should have been returned to the person each night as protection against the cold night air, according to Eliphaz. Job later refuted Eliphaz's charges, and we'll see that later in chapter 31. But Eliphaz accused Job of insensitivity as well. Although Job was a powerful man and an influential man, Eliphaz says that his actions showed that he was not concerned about the needy. He supplied neither water nor food to them despite their circumstances. And in verse 9, Eliphaz cited Job for failing to provide for widows and orphans. Care of the oppressed served as a standard of common decency and social obligation in the ancient Near East. And the alleviation of their need was of concern to God, according to Eliphaz. So it is good and right to do good deeds. But Eliphaz he's condemning Job here, saying basically, you're just living the high life and you're not helping anybody in the process. You're only helping yourself, which was not really the case. because we read earlier about the different things that Job had done for people, for his family, for people who lived around him as well. And then we move on. We're going to move on to chapter 23. And Job answered Eliphaz with an attempt to justify his attitude in verses 1 and 2. Job answered that today also my complaint is bitter. His hand is heavy despite my groaning. If only I knew how to find him, so that I could go to his throne, I would plead my case before him. Now we move on to verse 8. Job experienced God as highly elusive. In other words, he says that he has sought him east, west, north, and south, but he failed to perceive him. In other words, to know that he was there, to see him or hear him or smell him, to sense him in any way as far as our physical five senses go. But he also says that God was so close that Job felt his relentless attacks. So he was not able to communicate with him, but he felt the presence of God's attacks upon him. And then in verse 10 says, "Yet he knows the way I have taken. When he has tested me, I will emerge as pure gold." And what that's referring to here is, as dross is removed from gold in the crucible during the purification process there, it leaves a shining surface. So when God finished dealing with him, Job would appear also as a shining example of righteousness. There, that little play on words there, the shininess of gold and the shininess of righteousness. And that's where I'm going to leave it today, as Job's reply to Eliphaz. We're going to continue with that. Tomorrow we're going to do chapter 24 through 28. That's 5 chapters in Job tomorrow. If something stood out to you today in the reading, please comment about it and let's talk about it in the comment section. And I hope to see you tomorrow. If this has touched you, please share it, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and of course click the little jingle bell so you can get notified the next time I upload a video. And we'll see you tomorrow for Job chapters 24 through 28. Blessings.